Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder if there are different ways autistic adults manage their feelings, and if those ways are linked to struggles with depression and anxiety? Stick around because today we're diving into a fascinating study that explores just that. So, the big question this study tackled is why autistic adults seem to experience higher rates of depression and anxiety compared to non-autistic individuals. One big idea they explored is how people manage their emotions, a process called emotion regulation. While a lot of research has looked at this in younger autistic people, this study specifically focused on autistic adults. They wanted to see if different emotion regulation strategies were linked to depression and anxiety, and if these links might differ between males and females on the autism spectrum. To figure this out, the researchers used two independent groups of autistic adults. In sample 1, they had 225 adults, and in sample 2, they had 267. Both groups filled out questionnaires. One key questionnaire asked about two main ways people manage their emotions. The first is called cognitive reappraisal. This is like trying to think about a difficult situation in a different, more positive or neutral way. The second strategy is expressive suppression, which is basically holding back or hiding how you truly feel. Think of it as putting on a brave face when you don't feel brave inside. They also asked these adults about their levels of depressive and anxious symptoms. Now, here is what they found. First off, when comparing autistic males and females, they didn't find any significant differences in how much they used either cognitive reappraisal or expressive suppression. This was a bit of a surprise, as one of their initial hunches was that there might be differences. So, contrary to their first hypothesis, it seems that both males and females on the autism spectrum tend to use these strategies similarly. But here is where it gets really interesting. When they looked at how emotion regulation strategies related to mental health, they found a pretty clear pattern. In sample 1, which measured both types of strategies, people who used more expressive suppression, that is, the strategy of hiding their feelings, were more likely to report higher levels of depressive and anxious symptoms. On the flip side, using cognitive reappraisal, the strategy of reframing thoughts wasn't significantly linked to lower depressive or anxious symptoms in this study, which is a bit different from some other findings. Now, what about sex differences in mental health? In sample 1, after accounting for their emotion regulation strategies, the researchers found that females on the autism spectrum reported higher levels of both depressive and anxious symptoms compared to males on the autism spectrum. This aligns with what we often see in the general population, where females tend to report higher rates of these conditions. However, in sample 2, they didn't find these same sex differences in depressive or anxious symptomatology. This difference between the two samples was a puzzle, especially since they tried to account for age differences. So let's dig into what this all means. The study found that autistic adults, compared to general population data, tended to use less cognitive reappraisal. That's the strategy of changing your thoughts about a situation, and more expressive suppression, the strategy of hiding your feelings. This could be a key piece of the puzzle, explaining why autistic adults experience higher rates of depression and anxiety. Using expressive suppression, which involves a lot of internal effort to hide your emotions, might be particularly difficult and taxing. The researchers suggest that expressive suppression might be closely related to autistic masking. Masking is when autistic individuals try to hide their autistic traits to fit in. This often involves suppressing emotions that might reveal their autistic identity, like distress during overwhelming sensory experiences or even just hiding how they genuinely feel in social situations. Since masking itself is known to be emotionally and cognitively draining and linked to anxiety and depression, expressive suppression could be a similar mechanism or even be primed by the need to mask. This is really important because many interventions for depression and anxiety focus on teaching cognitive reappraisal. But if expressive suppression is more accessible or even automatic for some autistic individuals, possibly due to masking, then just telling them to reappraise might not be enough. Interventions might need to specifically address the use of expressive suppression and understand how it interacts with masking. Now, it is important to remember that this study had some limitations. For instance, they only looked at autistic adults without intellectual disabilities. So these findings might not apply to everyone on the autism spectrum. They also only focused on two specific emotion regulation strategies: cognitive reappraisal and expressive suppression. There are other ways people manage emotions, like rumination or avoidance. And importantly, autistic individuals might use unique strategies like stimming to regulate their emotions. The study also didn't explore how successful participants found these strategies or how flexibly they used them. Overall, this research highlights that autistic adults tend to use less cognitive reappraisal and more expressive suppression compared to the general population. The increased use of expressive suppression was linked to higher depressive and anxious symptoms, especially in sample 1. While the sex differences in mental health were present in one sample but not the other, the common thread seems to be the impact of expressive suppression, possibly amplified by autistic masking. Future research could explore these strategies more deeply, considering how they are used flexibly and in conjunction with other unique autistic coping mechanisms, and how to adapt interventions to be more supportive of autistic well-being. Understanding expressive suppression and its link to masking could be a significant step in helping autistic adults manage their mental health more effectively. What do you all think about these findings? Does the idea of expressive suppression and its connection to masking resonate with you? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this breakdown helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science translated for curious minds. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.